Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I thought I knew those woods. I've been coming here for years, always alone, always in late October when the leaves were turning gold and red, when the air had that crisp edge that smelled like pine and decay at the same time. The forest was quiet, too quiet, some people might say, but I liked it. I liked the silence. It made me feel alive, and for years, it had been nothing but peaceful. That night, though, that night was different. I set up my tent in a small clearing I'd used countless times before. The fire crackled, sending shadows dancing along the edges of the trees, and I leaned back against my pack, thinking about nothing at all. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky bruised purple. I watched it darken, watched the first stars blink into existence, and then I heard it. At first it was subtle, a twig snapping somewhere just beyond the firelight. I thought it was a deer, or maybe a raccoon. I laughed at myself, telling myself I was imagining things. But then it came again, step after step, slow and deliberate, circling the clearing. Heavy, rhythmic, not like any animal I'd ever heard. I froze. I picked up my flashlight and scanned the darkness. Nothing, just the trees, standing like silent sentinels. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just the wind, just my imagination. But then came the whisper, soft, low, almost gentle, but unmistakable. I see you. My stomach turned to ice. My heart started pounding, hammering in my chest like it was trying to break free. I could feel the weight of it all pressing down, the darkness, the quiet, the feeling of eyes on me. I tore the tent open and ran. My legs stumbled over roots and rocks, my flashlight swinging wildly, catching nothing but trees and shadows. But the footsteps, they followed, step for step. No matter how fast I ran, they matched me. I reached my car and yanked at the door handle. It stuck for a second, and I swear I could hear the footsteps pause, waiting. My fingers trembled as I finally got it open and threw myself inside. I slammed the door. The key went into the ignition, and nothing. The engine wouldn't turn over. Just the dead silence of the forest, broken only by those footsteps circling closer. I dared to look through the windshield. Two glowing eyes were staring at me, bright, unnatural, and impossibly still. They weren't moving like a human, not really. They were just watching, waiting. I slammed the door and locked it, shaking like a leaf in a storm. My breath fogged the windows as I tried to think, tried to reason. There was no one else for miles. And yet there was. I thought about running into the woods, thought about climbing a tree, anything to get away. But the moment I opened the door, the eyes moved, gliding silently across the clearing, cutting me off. I slammed the door again, praying for the engine to start. Eventually, by some miracle, it turned over. I floored it, tires spinning in the dirt, headlights cutting through the black. The eyes didn't follow this time. Or maybe they did. I couldn't tell. I didn't stop until I was miles away, back on the highway, shaking so badly I could barely grip the wheel. I've been back home for weeks, but I can't shake it. I can still hear those footsteps sometimes, in the middle of the night, circling my apartment, just outside in the dark, waiting, watching. I tell myself it was some animal, a bear maybe, or some trick of my mind. But I know better. I felt it, and I know deep down it's still out there, somewhere in those woods, patient as ever, waiting for the next time someone thinks they know them. Because you never really know them. Not the woods, not what hides in them, and certainly not the things that walk silently behind you, step for step, all night long. Story 2. I had always been drawn to the woods. Not the kind of attraction that makes you look at a forest on a map and think, I'll go hike there someday, but the kind that gnaws at your chest and whispers at you in the dead of night. Go. Be alone. Face it. So, when I planned my first solo camping trip, I imagined it as some rite of passage. Just me, the trees, and the quiet. Complete isolation. The first night was uneventful. I pitched my tent in a clearing far from the trail, lit a small fire, and cooked some instant noodles. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, and the kind of silence that only exists in deep forests wrapped around me. I felt alive, awake, and almost peaceful. I went to bed early. I had this tiny habit of leaving the tent zipper slightly open so I could feel the breeze and hear the forest breathing. Around midnight, I woke up slowly because I thought I heard something. A soft rustle, like nylon against nylon, cut through the night. My first thought was the wind, but it was too precise, too deliberate. Then I heard it again, a soft, deliberate zip. My heart froze. There was no wind here. My tent flap moved slowly, not in a rush, just in a way that said someone was very, very careful. I tried to breathe quietly, tried to convince myself it was an animal or a branch falling, but then I heard it, a whisper, impossibly soft but clear, calling my name. Arslan, wake up. It wasn't a voice of anger. It wasn't threatening. It was calm, almost affectionate. My stomach turned. I lay still, pretending to sleep, hoping, praying it would go away. The zipper moved again, slower this time, and then a shadow appeared at the corner of my tent. At first, I thought it was some trick of the light from the fire outside. Then it shifted. A shape crouched low, watching me. I tried to scream, but my throat locked. I couldn't even whisper. The air around me thickened. The smell hit me before I could process it. Earthy, wet, and faintly metallic. It was wrong, and it made my skin crawl. The figure edged closer, moving in a way that no human should be able to move, smooth, unnatural, like a cat circling its prey. I could feel it studying me, tasting the fear radiating off me in waves. My muscles screamed at me to run. My mind was a screaming jumble of panic and disbelief. I didn't have to think about it any longer. I bolted. I ripped open the tent, dragging my sleeping bag behind me like some tether to the safety I once thought I had. The forest greeted me in a terrifying silence. Not even the crickets made a sound. My boots sank into wet earth, and every step I took felt like it was being mirrored. I didn't dare look back. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs threatened to give out. I found a small creek and collapsed beside it, drenched in sweat and shivering not from the cold, but from pure, unadulterated terror. When I finally mustered the courage to look back, nothing was there. No shadow, no movement, just the moonlight glinting off leaves. But I knew that whatever had been in my tent was still out there, watching, waiting. The next morning, I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just packed up my stuff in a trembling haze and left. I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on my back, burning into me from the shadows of the trees. When I finally returned to civilization, I thought it was over. Safe. Behind fences and asphalt. A week later, I went back to the campsite. I wanted to see the footprints. Maybe I could convince myself it had all been a dream. I didn't find the shadow. I didn't see anything lurking, but the footprints were there. Mine, of course, leading to the clearing, but another set too. Larger, maybe heavier. Human enough to be real, but wrong. They didn't follow any natural path. They didn't walk. They glided. They led from my tent into the forest, and then vanished. Just ended, mid-step, as if the earth itself had swallowed them whole. I've read stories of people losing themselves in the woods, disappearing without a trace. I never believed them. Not until I woke up that night in my tent, looking at a shadow crouched in the corner, hearing a voice that wasn't mine. I don't camp alone anymore. I don't go back to the woods. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I can still hear it whispering my name. Arslan, wake up. I don't answer. Story 3. I never thought I'd write a story about fear like this. Not really. Fear that grabs you, slams into your chest, and leaves you gasping long after the danger is gone, or worse, when you think it's gone. But that night, the mountains taught me a lesson I'll never forget. We were a group of 5 college friends itching for a weekend escape. Nothing fancy, just tents, a cooler full of food, and a fire pit someone had dug out the previous year. The air smelled like pine and damp earth, the kind of crisp cold that makes your lungs feel alive. It was perfect until darkness fell. The first night was fine, laughing, sharing cheap beers, telling half-true ghost stories. The kind of stories you tell around a fire, so everyone's voice shakes a little, even if they're trying not to. The second night, though, something shifted. We had set up the fire again, the flames dancing, sending shadows licking across the clearing. I noticed them first, those tiny points of reflected light, just beyond the treeline. At first, I thought it was just deer eyes, maybe foxes. But the way they moved, slow, deliberate, almost deliberate watching, it felt wrong. I pointed. Hey, do you guys see that? The others laughed. See what? Just your imagination, man. They were lying, though. I could feel it in my chest, the tightening, the cold grip of something watching me. They weren't lying to themselves. They just didn't see it yet. Curiosity got the better of me. I told myself I'd just take a quick look. Maybe it really was a deer. Maybe I was imagining the glow in the shadows. I stood, feeling the warmth of the fire fade as I stepped into the darkness. The eyes followed. Every step I took, they shifted, multiplied. Now there were dozens, reflecting firelight that didn't exist, like tiny suns planted in the black. Then the breathing started. Slow, heavy, wet, deliberate. Not like any animal I've ever heard. It sounded human, almost, but too deep, too resonant, too cold. My friend shouted my name, voices full of laughter turning into panic. Arslan, come back. I turned, expecting to see the path back to camp. Nothing. The clearing I'd known for years had disappeared. Trees that were supposed to be behind me were gone, replaced by more shadows. The forest had shifted, or maybe it had always been like this and I had only just noticed. I ran blindly, tripping over roots, tearing my hands on branches. The breathing followed, closer now, echoing inside my skull like it was in my chest, not in the forest. I didn't stop. I didn't look. I just ran until I hit a small stream, fell into the cold water, and crawled up the bank, shivering, soaked, and completely alone. And then I saw them. Not two, not a dozen, but 100, maybe more. Eyes in every direction, glowing in the darkness, moving silently, keeping pace with me even though I hadn't moved from the stream. They were waiting, patient, intelligent, knowing. Not human, not animal. Something else. Something ancient. I thought about screaming, but nothing comes out when pure terror grips your throat. I stayed there, frozen, until the first rays of dawn broke through the treetops. And then they were gone. The forest looked normal again. The path to camp had returned, the clearing exactly how it had been. Nothing out of place. But I knew what had been there, and I knew it was watching. Always. I made it back to the tent. My friend were asleep, probably dreaming, oblivious. I wanted to tell them. I wanted to warn them. But what would I have said? There were 100 eyes watching me last night, breathing in a voice like death. They would have laughed. Maybe I would have laughed if I hadn't felt the weight of those eyes still in the back of my mind. I haven't camped in the mountains since. I haven't gone near anything that dark and quiet. And at night, when the wind rustles through the trees or the shadows shift just so, I see them. Those eyes, waiting in the dark, not moving, not closing, watching, patient. And I can feel it somehow in my dreams and in my chest. They're still out there, and one day they might decide to stop waiting. Fear isn't just about what you see. Fear is what follows you home, what lingers in the corners of your mind, what wakes you in the middle of the night and whispers your name when you're alone. I know fear now, and I know those eyes will never forget me.